Good evening from Handsome Hog. We've had some requests for some meat prep, and tonight we're going to do a brisket meat prep. This will be a two-part series. We're going to do the meat prep from the beginning, how we actually trim most of the fat off of our brisket to get it ready to go into the smoker. And then in the part two, after all these briskets have cooked, we're going to show you how to cut each of your brisket when they come out. I have found in my career of doing this, there are so many people that do not know how to cut their brisket, and they end up really destroying it. So tonight, we're going to start this off by prepping our meat. You'll be able to get this brisket down here this week at the Handsome Hog in Groveport, 549 Main Street. And we look forward to everybody coming down this week and enjoying our fabulous barbecue. So, without any further ado, I'm going to adjust the camera to focus completely on the meat that I have here in front of me. And we're going to have fun. I'm going to do some explanation as I'm cutting this. Now, I've already started this one here before I thought about going ahead and starting this video. I did do a video a few months back, and I was really cramped because we were doing remodeling, and I really didn't like the video too well. So today, we're going to go ahead and redo this and get you all caught up on the best things to do. What we're going to do with this video also, we're going to show you how we rub our barbecue with our rub as well. So again, without further ado, let's have some fun and play with some meat. All right. Alrighty, I'm sure you can hear me here real well. We've got this side of our meat. This is a superior Black Angus brisket. And when I trim mine, because the way that we do our barbecue around here, we don't do the traditional smoking like most barbecue joints do. We do a version of the Texas two-step, but a little better. Most people will take their brisket and they'll cut it, get it all prepped and ready, rub it, put it into the smoker, and wait 5, 6 hours, 8 hours, depending on how low they're cooking it and what type of bark they're looking to get on this. So what we're going to accomplish today is talking about the marbling. First of all, when you're picking out your meat, I like to get a superior Black Angus. That's what we have good and ready here in Columbus area. I like the marbling that I get from a superior piece of meat. I know Mr. Brisket out there has some really great meat, and I'm looking forward to someday trying their meat out. But for right now, what we do with our meat is we do use superior Angus brisket. Okay, so you can see here that I've started cutting this down a little bit. I did get a pretty good shiner here, but I'm not worried about that because we don't do a traditional smoke here. We do about 6 hours in the open, and then we cover it just like everybody else, but we keep ours in a pan, and we do what's called a braise smoke. That means that we keep all the juices, and we allow those juices to permeate back into the meat and cause it to be extremely, extremely juicy. No chances of it drying out when we do it that way, and we do that way because you, our consumers, want the most tender, juicy piece of meat that you can experience, and that's why we do what we do. If I needed to go do a competition and it needed to be done the old way, I'll do it that way. But for what we're doing here, you guys want it the best it can be, and that's what we're going to do. All right, so you can kind of see from this little piece of fat that I'm working it with here that that's got a little bit of depth to it. What I'm looking to try to accomplish here is to get it pretty close to 1/8 of an inch, or see how you can barely see that little bit of a shiner right there? That is perfect for what we want to do. And the reason why we want to get most of this fat down is it's going to render. There's no doubt about that it's going to render, but the problem is that if you leave too much of it on, you end up having a really fatty type of top bark. And I, for one, don't really care for that. So what I look to accomplish here is to get it down just low enough so that while it's cooking, that fat renders away, and then my rub is left on top of the meat where it belongs. So let's go ahead and get these couple little tidbits taken off here. And also what I do here is I take my fat that I get cut off of this and I actually put it into my pan. So we're getting a lot more juices that way when it renders. All right, so what we're looking at here is this part of the fat in this part of the muscle. I like to cut it down and get it to where I get most of this big chunk of good fat. Don't ever throw away this fat, because this fat here has all of your flavor in it. And that's why when you do a traditional type of cook, you're looking to get the maximum juices coming from the inside and up and out. We are doing the same thing. We do leave quite a bit of this fat inside, but we don't leave too much, because when we go to cut this meat, we want to be able to just cut it straight off, give it straight to you, and it not have too much fat. Now that big chunk of fat that you see right there, I'm actually going to cut that down into smaller chunks. And I'm going to take those smaller chunks and I'm going to lay them in my pan. And when I lay those in my pan, I'm going to get a nice little bed for the bottom of my brisket to lay on. That way there's no chance of it burning in those high heats that may come up and spark up when you're adding more logs to your flame, because I need to do that about every hour or so. So now you can kind of see here, we'll flip it around so you can see inside this cavity here. Now what I just took out of there was such a big chunk. Now it's going to lay a little bit flatter, and we've got most of it out. We want a good amount in here because it's going to render out. This is our point. This is the end of the fatty end that everybody loves to get that pulled pork, to get the burnt ends, to get all of that good love. And this end is our flat. And when we look at our flat, we want to have enough meat on it so that way when it cooks and while it cooks, we don't get it to be too dried out during that cook process. But since we put it in the pan and we keep our juices, we don't take a chance on this portion of it drying out too much because it stays in its juices. Now, I see that I've got a little bit more fat here than I want, so I'm going to go ahead and get up underneath of there, get some of that out, so that way I can put that into the pan. So I'm not going to lose those flavors that I had. And this is a pretty good amount here, so let's go ahead from here and take a little bit of this out here. And I want to expose this marbling, because this is what you're looking for in a really, really good brisket. You're looking for this type of marbling. Look at that marbling that you have right here. I'm going to slide this over so you can see it. You've got a nice striation of fat, striation of meat, striation of fat, striation of meat. Beautifully, beautifully marbled. This is all going to render down real well while we cook. Now we come back up here to the top and we see this little lip right here. That's no good to any of us. You're not going to want to get that in your mouth. I don't want to get that in my mouth. So we come in here and we take a little bit of this off and we get rid of that. Again, though, it's good for rendering, so we'll put it over there into our pan for rendering. Now, I like the way this looks right here. We might have just this little bit of a floppy, skinny kind of stuff here. Again, you don't want to get that in your mouth either, so I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of this off and just let it pull off. Follow the meat. Now, that is not good. That fat right there is more like a second layer of skin, and it just does not taste good in your mouth, and it will not render down well. So let's go ahead and flip this baby over to get to our back side here again that we started off, that you could see. All of this has got nice marbling through, and what we want to do. I want to round this off here just a little bit to give it a little bit more aerodynamics, but also get rid of this little fat seam. Again, that's not really great getting in, but that will render down as some nice little tastelets after the cook. All right, so we're going to flip this here, and we're going to see this muscle right here. And that muscle is a great muscle to allow to cook down. So we're going to go ahead and start to get it out. Again, we're going to cut back into this muscle where this vein of muscle or fat comes through, and we're going to go really thin right here on this edge, and we're going to just cut that membrane just enough to expose this little medallion of muscle fat. And then we're going to come here to the bottom of it, and we're going to take that and slide it to get it out. Now I'm doing something a little awkward here because I'm trying to keep it on the camera so you can actually see what I'm doing. But if I was actually laying this down the way I would normally cut it, I would not be putting my fingers into jeopardy. So it takes a lot of experience to do what I'm doing, but that does not mean that I will not cut my fingers if I do not pay attention. Now, you see that nice medallion that just came out of there? That is good fat. So again, we're going to go ahead and cut that down into small little pieces so that we can lay it in the bottom. I want more people cooking like we do here in Ohio so we can get on the map with the best tasting and the juiciest barbecue in all the states. So I have no problem with teaching this way of cutting our meats. All right, so we got this little piece here. I'm going to flip it over so I can get to it so I don't cut myself here on this piece, and then we'll get back to showing you some more goodies. All right, we're going to cut this paperish type of fat off here. This part right here that is on the bottom half of our brisket, it's like chewing into paper. You don't want this. You want to go ahead and get this cut off the best you can and throw it in the trash. You do not want that to be in with all your other renderings because it's not going to render down and make any flavor. It's just going to be like eating wet tissue paper in your mouth. And I'm going to promise you right now, that is one of the worst things you can get in your mouth. And it just makes, for somebody who's never had brisket before, it will ruin their experience, and then they're never going to want to eat this type of food ever again. So just take and cut that down just that little bit to get these little striations of what I call paper fat out. You've got a little bit of silver membrane back here. Some people